Welcome back. Now, it may have been called The Miniaturist, but there was nothing small-scale about the success Jessie Burton achieved with her debut novel.
Yes, the book was one of the best-selling titles of the decade and won several awards as well. But it was when she was at her most successful that Jessie was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, something she says influenced her new book.
Delighted to say that Jessie is here with us now. How lovely to see you. Thank
Hello.
you. You look lovely in summary.
Thank
That's my
you.
first impression. Oh, thank you so much for coming to see us. So let's talk about your first book first, because it was so successful and kind of came as a surprise to you, didn't that enormous amount of success?
Yeah, it wasn't very expected, and I don't think you really ever expect something like that with your first book. You just hope that maybe 500 people might buy it, and maybe your family, and then what happened was completely. I wasn't very prepared for it, and it just went international and #1, and yeah, so it was quite hard to catch up with.
So on the face of it, Jessie, you might think a wonderful thing like that happening. It's a dream come true, isn't it? And that would be a wonderful thing to happen. Is that how it transpired?
Well, it is, and it was a wonderful thing to happen, but also it was something that was kind of out of my realm of experience, and it was bigger than me, and the identity that I had prior to that. I'd defined myself by trying to write a book and getting published. It was like a journey, and then arriving at that, I'd sort of run out of energy and confidence, and it sort of, it kind of fragmented my identity, and I didn't really know how to perform success. I didn't really know what that meant anymore, and everyone was like, oh, you must be so happy. And obviously I was really happy to have written a book that people wanted to read, but the whole thing around it was just very hard to connect to.
So were you kind of stumbling creatively? Were you still able to write? So was that affecting what you were doing?
I was still able to write, but whether or not I thought what I was writing was any good was the problem. But actually, yeah, like writing carried on being the anchor. The actual act of writing was the sort of saving grace amidst it all.
And I mean, the first thing when you read either of your books is that you do enormous amounts of research. So presumably that in some way, was that in any way a distraction when you were having to research the next one?
Yeah, I mean, it's very helpful sort of, doing your research and finding your clues and your triggers that are going to help you write the book. And yeah, it's quite comforting.
And the next book is some of it's in London, some of it's in Andalusia, and you love Andalusia, don't you?
I love Andalusia, yeah.
Did you spend a lot of time there?
Yeah, as part of my degree, I lived in the south of Spain, and I taught as a teaching assistant in Cadiz. So yeah, and I love it. It's a very varied place, and it's very warm.
Yes.
It's always a bonus. Yeah, and I kind of knew I was going to set the book in Spain, and I was very interested in the Spanish Civil War and how it came to be and the effects of it on normal people rather kind of at a national scale. So yeah, and then London in the 60s because, well, why not?
Yes, I was going to say, that isn't where the book starts, and we're not going to go into plot lines because that wouldn't be fair, but Andalusia is not where the book starts.
No, it starts in 1967 London with a young girl who's come over from Trinidad, Adele, and she's been in London for 5 years, and she's kind of come up against lots of adversities, and all she wants to do is write, and she finally gets a job as a typist in an art gallery, and thereby starts everything, and this painting turns up, and all these secrets connected to the painting help Adele find her own identity.
And you talk about the clues and what's going to spark you off. So where did they come from? There's kind of two main characters, aren't there?
Yeah.
Probably?
Well, I suppose they're kind of, and I guess in a way, they're kind of versions of me. They're kind of explorations of what it means to be an artist and to make your work public, because they're both people who are passionate about what they do, and so am I. But then there's this thing that happens where it becomes mass consumed, and so Olive Schloss is this artist who's painting secretly in 1936 Spain, and she wants to be anonymous so she can just do whatever she wants. And Adele Bastian is this writer in 60s London who is desperate to be public and make her work known. So it's this kind of document that I'm exploring.
And for you, the act of writing, you said before, have you always written? Because I'm always intrigued by, when it started. When you were a little girl, were you was that always your thing?
It was, yeah. I always wrote little plays and poems and some probably quite bad novels that will never see the light of day.
Did others read those? With your family? Did you?
Yeah, like I would write stories and give them as presents to people, or poems and things like that. But I also wanted to be an actress, and it was sort of my two loves were acting and writing. And I never really thought that much about writing. It was just like breathing, whereas acting was a kind of active project. But I always have done it, and I remembered that when The Miniaturist became overnight success, I thankfully found all these journals and things that I'd done when I was little, and remembered, actually, no, this wasn't just like overnight. This
Right.
is long term.
I mean, there was bidding wars for it. You know, there's people bidding for the film rights, etc. So, what will it be a film? Do you think, The Miniaturist? What will happen what's going to happen? Do you know?
I'm hoping it's going to be TV.
TV, okay.
And as for the Muse, that's still all up in the air. So,
But that
yeah.
could also happen as well.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
What's it like when you know you've got to write your second one as well, because you've had such a success
Yeah.
and you've got to sit down and do it, haven't you?
I was quite knackered. I was like, oh God, I've got to write another book. 100,000 words, all right. Yeah, I mean, I was contractually obliged to write
Yes,
it.
that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, so like The Miniaturist was written with no expectation, and then The Muse, arguably one might say, was with some expectation. So yeah, obviously at times I had wobbles. I was just like, how am I supposed to match The Miniaturist? But also I thought, well, I'm not going to. It's a completely different book. Stories, everything. Think of the reader, and just tell the story you want to tell all over again.
Lovely to see you here this
You make
morning.
it sound very simple.
Oh, it's very easy.
Thank
But
you.
it's not. Jessie's new book, thank you, Jessie, it's called The Muse.
That's it from us this morning. Back tomorrow morning from 6, joined by Dexys Midnight Runners frontman Kevin Brun.
We're going to leave you with a beautiful view this morning from Penrhyn Porth in Cornwall. Here it is. What a fabulous view. Have a lovely day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.